Hello, my dear church boys, and welcome back to yet another episode of Saint Robert's Daygame podcast. And in this podcast episode, we're going to talk about the differences between daygaming as a local versus daygaming as a foreigner, because I hear from guys over and over that they believe it's better to daygame as a foreigner, and foreigners have higher value, and that's why they get better results. And then at the same time, other guys are saying it's so much easier to daygame as a local. So who is right, who is wrong, and what are the differences? We're going to be talking about pros of being a foreigner, pros of being a local, what to do differently on a day game trip, and what changes when you're day gaming as a local. Why you should go on day game trips. Do you need to know the language of the country you're day gaming in? This mostly applies to Latin America. And what are the differences when day gaming in your own language after learning day game in English? And regardless of whether you're day gaming in your own country or abroad, if you want to learn what exactly to do on dates, then you can check out my free dating course on daygamecourses.com, which will teach you exactly what to do step by step from meeting a girl to undressing her at your place. And if you're planning to go on a day game trip to a place and you want to learn more about the location, you can ask any questions you have about it in our Day Game Church Telegram group chat, where we have more than 450 day gamers from literally all over the world. There's no mental masturbation, no blah blah blah, only technical conversations about day game. And if you're going on a day game trip to Europe and are considering going to Budapest, then I will be in Budapest in July and will have some coaching spots available there for 1, 3, or 5 coaching days. You can learn more about how day game coaching with me usually works by clicking the link in description, filling the form there, and I'll get back to you with all the details, the prices, the dates, the cities, Budapest or others. And then if everything sounds good, we're going to hop on a short WhatsApp call where you can ask all the questions you have about coaching and how it usually works. And I'll have a few questions to you to learn more about you and understand what's the best way I can help you. And now let's talk about the differences between day gaming as a local and as a foreigner. And let's start with pros of being a foreigner. And there are 5 reasons why, or 4 pros for day gaming as a foreigner. Number 1, maybe girls haven't had that experience of going out with a foreigner, even just going on a date with foreigner, and maybe sleeping with a foreigner. They just haven't had that experience. They want to experience that. That's something new for them, and that alone can get you more dates. Of course, depending on a country, you might run into girls that are more than happy to go on dates with foreigners, but it doesn't mean at all that it's going to be easy to sleep with them. Kiev in Ukraine was the perfect example for this. Guys were going to Kiev in Ukraine and they were all saying, oh my God, the girls there are so beautiful. And I went on a date with this super hot girl. Oh my God, I've never been on a date with girls this hot. And you kept hearing these stories and all these guys kept going to Kiev. Well, the part that's missing in those stories is the lay reports are missing. These guys were day gaming these girls. They were getting the numbers. These girls were more than happy to go out with a foreigner, but very few of those guys were getting laid with these girls. So be careful when you are super excited about going to a place where being a foreigner adds an extra value to you, especially if it's in a more, you could say, traditional place like Ukraine was. So it doesn't mean that going on dates with them is the same as getting laid with them. It's sort of the same as guys going to Warsaw, Poland right now, because there are so many beautiful girls there and they're super excited about that. And girls in Poland are very receptive to day game on the street, but then getting them out becomes a bit of a trouble, and sometimes you have to go on more than one date, and sometimes it's dates to nowhere, which are fairly common to Poland, which all of this makes it kind of funny, like these crazy crowds of guys going to Poland and all day gaming in the same city. Now let's get to the next point, the next pro of being a foreigner, and that is anonymity. When a girl wants to have an adventure, well, and when she's doing it with someone from the same city, especially if it's a smaller city with less than 1 million people, take Riga, Latvia, for example, there is a chance that that information might get out. Obviously, it's not really a concern and it's not that important, and I don't think it keeps a lot of girls from having these adventures. But when you are coming in as a foreigner, it's clear that you don't know many locals, no one's gonna find out, and she can do whatever the hell she wants with you, at least if she is even concerned about that. And this again applies to smaller cities only. And the third point, being perceived as nicer towards women. This might be especially true in places like Balkans. Again, in some places, it was the case in Ukraine when I spent a few months there. But in these kind of more really Eastern places, and we're not talking here about places like Baltics or I don't know, kind of Budapest, maybe Budapest a little bit. But in Balkans and in places like that, men oftentimes are known for having not the nicest attitude towards women. The same goes for many places in Latin America. So you being a foreigner might be a nice bonus because they believe you'll be nicer towards them, because men are known to be fairly harsh with women in these parts of the world. Obviously not always, and I'm not saying bad things about men in these places, but there are more you can't really use word reports, but there are more complaints about men being dicks towards women in these places. So if you are a bit of a gentleman, and I don't mean by that taking her to fancy places or going on 7 dates, I just mean if you're not a complete asshole, you are already above average. Number 4, and some guys are really gonna like it. You might be perceived as an exotic race. This depends on a country, but there are countries that react very well to brown guys. There are countries where girls react very well to black guys. For example, we've spent a few months in Belgrade, Serbia with my friend Mr. T, who's a black daygamer from New York City. Very nice daygamer, very good daygamer. And he got very good reactions in Belgrade. And we figured it's because he's black, because I don't know of many examples of foreigners doing that great in Belgrade, Serbia. There are places that really like brown guys. And in our group chat, we have an Asian daygamer who's traveling to different places, and he's kind of a little bit obsessed in a negative way to look for places where girls like Asian guys more, and girls who are into K-pop and things like that. But actually, there are locations like that. If you, whatever race you are, you can kind of, if you really wanna look into it, you can talk in a group chat and ask guys, okay, I am from this race. Where will I be an exotic guy in a positive way? And the fifth and the final point of pros of being a foreigner is the dream of meeting the Prince Charming. Of course, there is this idea in some parts of the world that I might meet a nice guy from abroad and he will take me away from my misery. But I would say this is much less important than guys would like to believe, because most parts, I would say all places in EU are developed enough for girls to not really care about you taking them away from those places. And actually there are a lot of cases where foreigners would move to this simpler place in maybe in the Baltics or in the Balkans and just live with the girl there. The same happens with foreigners moving to different places in Latin America when they're moving or when they're meeting a girl there. So yes, it sort of plays a role, maybe a little bit, but again, I think guys put way too much importance in this, and it's much less of a factor than you might believe. Okay, and now let's switch to the next topic, pros of being a local. And I have 6 bullet points here. Number 1, of course, this is obvious, less fuckboy and sex tourist vibes. All these places where guys go on day game trips, especially in Europe, are known for stag parties, for guys who are going there for girls, for foreigners hitting on girls. And in many of these places, these guys, these foreigners, have the reputation of being fuckboys, of being sex tourists. And I think a lot of girls, because of that, will simply reject them because of that sex tourist vibe. You can especially see this in Budapest, I think. It doesn't mean it's not doable. It doesn't mean it's a problem. Simply, if you're going there as a foreigner, you have to understand some girls will like that and others will not. But if you are local, you definitely give off less fuckboy vibes, and you're definitely not a sex tourist. The second point is the idea of relationships is always there. Yes, you are going on dates and sleeping with girls fast, but there are three types of guys who reach out to me for coaching. Type 1 is the guy who just wants to have fun with a lot of girls. The second, and have this fun forever. The second type is a guy who wants a wife and yesterday, but the third type is a guy who wants to have fun with girls for a year or two. He wants to improve his dating skills, but then maybe a year or two down the line, he wants to have good enough dating skills so he can meet a girl that he doesn't really have access to right now, and he can build a nice relationship with a better quality girl. And since that's actually the biggest group of guys who reach out to me, that's actually the majority, then these guys are actually also open for relationships down the line. So, and a girl knows that. And yes, you are having fun. You are sort of being a little fuckboy for a year or two. But in reality, if these guys are open for the idea of relationships, they might actually start a relationship with a girl they met pretty early on, but maybe this relationship starts years down the line. So the idea is always there. And by this, I don't mean that you should be leading the girls on or giving the impression that you want something serious with them if that's not the case. But if you are open to the idea of maybe starting a relationship with someone in the future, there is nothing wrong with telling it in the right way. And if you want to learn how to do that, then simply go to my YouTube channel and search for One Step at a Time Theory. It's a great story that kind of tells a girl, listen, this might be just nothing. We might just have a drink, or we might go back to my place, or we might be kind of dating each other casually. Maybe one day we might start a relationship. And the whole point of the story is we don't know what's gonna happen, and that's fine. And I think it's a great frame to use if that's actually the case in your life. And the third bullet point is, if you are living in a city where you are day gaming, you're probably also looking for regulars, not just one night stands, because one night stands are they're of course interesting, they're fun, and getting new lays is fun. You learn a lot from them. But at the same time, you know that if you meet a nice girl, you probably want to see her more than once. You want to have her as a regular. For a lot of day gamers in the beginning, the perfect scenario is have maybe 2 regulars and then have a few new lays each month. And then, once in a while, these regulars are gonna decide they don't want to have anything casual anymore. They're gonna meet a guy and start a relationship. You're gonna stop seeing them, and then a new regular will show up. So there is always this idea that there's a possibility for more than one night stand. And from the girl's perspective, yeah, girls are very fine with obviously not all, but a lot of girls are fine with one night stands. Girls want to have fun too. But girls who have had enough one night stands, they prefer, even if it's casual, they prefer a guy with whom they can sleep more than one time, because also from guys' perspective, but especially from women's perspective, the first time isn't great. I mean, it can be good, but it's not gonna be as good as sex when you're seeing someone for more than one time. I like to say that sex gets good after the third time. So even if it starts as a quick same-day lay, or maybe not a same-day lay, but a quick lay on a first date, it's maybe easier to do that because there is an idea that you might see each other again and you might start seeing each other casually. And the fourth pro of being a local is you have time to go more than 1 or 2 dates when needed. Sometimes you can get laid on a first date, and sometimes not even on a second date. And especially when you're learning, sometimes you're gonna be going on 3 dates. When I was starting day gaming, when I was learning, my lays usually were coming on a third date in the same place where I later was always getting laid, almost always on the first date. When you are on a day game trip for, let's say, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sometimes you don't have enough time to go on enough dates to get delay. But now when you are a local there, you can just slowly day game. You can slowly go on those dates, even 3 dates if necessary. And that's totally fine because you don't have that flight that you have booked to go back home. Point number 5, and this is important, you can polish your game in that location. Yes, 90% of day game is the same, but there are small differences in each place you day game, and you can really polish day game for that one city where you are day gaming. You can get really good in that place. This was sort of my conversation with Tom Torero when I started coaching. When I met him, we talked about my results, and he said, okay, dude, like, you're doing really good. You should definitely start coaching. But then he also told me you should go to different locations, because the fact that you're getting, I think it was like one layout of 35 opens back then, in one city, he said you go to different places, you repeat those stats, and then it will mean something. But if it's only in one place, it doesn't really mean that much. So don't get carried away. Don't think that you're the king of day game just because you're good at one location. Go explore different locations. Go to harder day game cities. Go to different parts of the world. If you're day gaming in Western Europe, go to Eastern Europe. If you're day gaming in Eastern Europe, go to Western Europe. Check out Asia. Check out different places in the USA. All these places, there are small differences in day game in each of them. And the 6th and the final pro of being a local, and this is a nice one, this is, let's say, a thing I love a lot. You have more options, you have higher possibility of setting up threesomes because you will have regulars in that city. You will have several regulars, and then you will start moving the conversation towards what type of adventures they've had. Have they been with girls? Have they had threesomes? Turns out not. And then slowly you can move that conversation towards setting up threesomes with different regulars. And it's very hard to do this on day game trips, but it's really easy to do this if you are good at day game, if you have many regulars and then are day gaming in the same place, and it's fairly easy to do. Next, let's talk about what to do differently when you are on a day game trip. Number 1, and this is very important, I see guys making this mistake all the time when I coach them in different cities where they are for a week or for 2. You have to understand you are in this place for a limited time. So there is no need to lie about how long you are there for. Guys will be there for a week or 2 and will lie that, oh yeah, I'm considering living here, so I just came one way and now I'm just gonna be staying here. And when they say this to a girl thinks, okay, I can go with this guy on like 2-3 dates. I can see whether we like each other and then I will sleep with him. So he needs to learn to filter. He needs to filter out the girls who are fine with you leaving in a week or 2 and who will still come out on a date with you. And some of those girls will be down to have some fun because, again, they know you are leaving. They are fine with it. Whereas if you said that you're there for a while, they might go out on a date with you and then you won't get delayed because they thought you're there for a longer time and you don't have enough time to go on more than one date. So be direct, be honest. If they ask how long are you here for, you can say I'm here for a week or I'm here for 2 weeks, and then go on dates with the girls who are fine with it. Which brings us to the second point. If you travel a lot and plan on coming back to that place, let her know that. Then there is the idea of this being more than just a one night stand, of this kind of maybe evolving in situation of friends with benefits or something similar. Obviously, say that if that's the true. If you never plan on going back to that city because you don't like the city, I don't think it's nice to lie to girls about things like that. So maybe don't do that. But if that's the case, I think you can really use that in your advantage. It's this whole idea of lying. There is no need to lie to girls. Guys think that women are little angels who are only looking for boyfriends and a prince charming and whatnot. Women also want to have fun, so there is nothing wrong with being honest with them. Of course, if you're doing that in the right way, if you just say, yeah, girl, I just want to fuck you once, well, then you're not really thinking straight, and that's not the best way to do that. But if you are saying these things in a calibrated way, in a nice way, maybe a little bit cheeky, a little bit agree and amplify jokes and things like that, then it's totally fine. The next point you have to do differently on a day game trip, you have to understand that faster date requests are okay. Sometimes you need to text back and forth for a few days before you date request in many countries. Not all of them, of course. Latin America is very different. Ukraine is different. But when you are in a place for a shorter time, you can date request pretty fast if she's very responsive. Again, maybe if you go date request and you go on a date sooner, you will have time to go on one more date if necessary. And the last point about things that are different on a day game trip is texting mistakes are okay because you don't have time. So you can text faster, you can respond a little bit faster. If she doesn't respond to a date request, for example, normally we would go silent for 2 days and then we would ping again. Maybe in this case you can do that after 1 day. So you have to text a little bit faster. And if you're not sure about all of these things in texting and want to improve your texting, then again, you can go to daygamecourses.com, where I have a free texting guide where you will learn everything you need to get the girls out after you get their numbers. And if you watch the texting course and you still have some texting questions, then just join our Telegram Daygame Church group chat and ask your questions there. But make sure you ask questions there after you watch the texting course. And now let's chat about a few things that become much more important when you are day gaming as a local. First of all, you don't have that added benefit of being an exotic thing, of being a foreigner, being a guy she has not been on a date with. So you are in a risk of being just as interesting as any other guy in that city. And if your life consists of working from 9 to 5 and then going home and, okay, maybe going to the gym and then going home and reading a book or playing a video game, and you're not doing fun stuff and you're not hanging out with people a lot and you're not a great conversationalist, you are running a risk of being pretty boring. And even though you approached her on a street and that was different than someone who swiped on her profile on an online dating app, it doesn't really mean that much if you are a boring person. So I would say if you are a local and if you aren't traveling much and doing interesting stuff, still think about what's interesting in your life. Learn to be a better conversationalist, learn to have better stories. I go over several ways you can do that on the dating guide on my website, daygamecourses.com. But a simple exercise you can do, you can open a note and then write in a vertical kind of column A, then a new line B, new line C, new line D, etc. Have all of the alphabet and try to come up with an interesting story, an interesting thing that has happened in your life on each letter of the alphabet. Maybe you won't have a story for each letter of the alphabet, but if you have 10, that's amazing. Let's say I might have A and I say, okay, I've spent like 6 months in Argentina. B, I used to study near Berlin when I was 20 years old, etc., etc. You can come up with stories on each letter. Now the second point, if the city is small enough, let's say the size of Riga, which is around 700, 800,000 people, maybe even smaller, but if it's less than 1 million, and you are day gaming for long enough and hardcore enough, people will know you. People will know you are day gaming, especially people in the places where you are day gaming all the time. And guys are very worried about this. Oh my God, I'm gonna be viewed as this day gamer. Well, I have good news for you. You won't be known as this crazy guy who's approaching girls, this day gamer, because you're probably not doing enough volume. If you are just day gaming here and there once in a while, no one's gonna know what you're doing. No one's gonna recognize you. If you have done 1,000 sets in one small part of the city, then yes, some people working there might start to recognize you, but then again, not all of them and not all of them will care. So for most of you out there, this is not important. This is only for guys who are going out all the time, doing crazy volume and day gaming in a small part of city, which is what I did in Riga. And yes, then I know that some people who are recognizing me, some people knew what I was doing, but again, there was a very, very small number of people. I've never had negative reactions from that. I've never had negative comments or anything like that from them. I've only had the most positive conversations that people recognize that I'm chatting up girls. But if you are going to be like a hardcore day gamer who's really going to dedicate yourself to day game, you just have to be aware that that's what's going to happen, and then you have to kind of own it. Yes, you are not doing online dating. Yes, you are not going to bars and getting shit-faced to chat to be able to chat to girls. You're chatting up girls on a street, and well, you have to own it. You have to understand that that's what you've chosen to do. That's who you are, and then you have to be fine with it. But again, this only applies to guys who are really hardcore day gamers. And the last thing I want to talk about, that last thing that changes when you are local that I want to talk about, is you can pay much more attention to becoming better in bed. You can learn things, you can become a better sexual partner because you are having regulars. You're not just there for a few weeks and sleeping with a girl once or twice and then leaving. You're having regulars, and because you're sleeping with them casually all the time, you can learn to discover what works for them in bed. You can learn to help them come. And when you learn that with one girl, good, you learn it with the next one, better. And the more girls you learn those things with, the more you learn to adapt to different girls, and the faster and easier it will be for you to make other new girls come. So I think this is a really, really good thing when you are day gaming in one city. And together with this comes kind of, yes, you have regulars, you're seeing with them, you're seeing them casually all the time. So you will start seeing different behaviors women have, and you will have to learn to deal with them. So again, I think this is a really, really big thing when it comes to day gaming in one place. You have an opportunity to become better in bed, and you have an opportunity to understand women better. So if you decide to start a relationship later in the future, you'll have much more experience with different behaviors they have and how you can react to them. And next, let's talk about 2 reasons why you should be going on day game trips. First one, if you are day gaming in a harder day game city where you're getting a lot of blowouts and nothing works, especially the beginning of a set, if the beginning of a set is where you are struggling because of blowouts, then you can go to an easier place to learn day game, to get these reference experiences where maybe you are getting better reactions when you stop a girl, and instead of just repeating and polishing your stop and your opener all the time, hundreds of times, you're getting opportunities to practice your stacking and to practice teasing and storytelling to make her interested in you, and then building comfort by getting to know her and making sure she knows a few things about yourself. And those are things you're going to be able to do in easier day game cities. They will give you these will be positive reference experiences which will give you more confidence when you go back to your city, and maybe this increased confidence will help you do better in your harder city as well. And a second reason to go on day game trips is day game is 90% the same wherever you day game. In all the cities, the same things work, but these 10% that are different, they make a very, very big difference. That's why when guys who are doing okay in day game, they go to different places, and they are most likely either doing okay or starting to get laid there. They will probably get laid there, or at least get dates and later start getting laid. But guys who spend more time in different places, let's say you're day gaming in one place and then you go to a different place, and you, just as we spoke before, when you're day gaming in one place, you learn to really, really crack that place to understand what works there, and then you go to a different place and 90% is the same. But if you are paying enough attention, if you are learning the day game the right way, then you figure out what are the 10% that makes all the difference in that new location. You learn to crack that new location. And then you go on a day game trip to yet another location, and again 90% is the same, but something isn't working, and you crack that 10%, and that's what makes all the difference. That's what makes the difference between maybe getting some dates and a one lay and getting dates all the time and then getting a bunch of lays as well. This was my experience when a few years back, before the war started, me and some day game friends and students, we all together went to Kharkiv in Ukraine. I remember that I went on 7 or 8 first dates to nowhere, and I just couldn't understand what to do. And I recorded a podcast episode about how we were struggling in Ukraine with with Daygame. But then I sat down and I thought, okay, what do I have to improve here? What do I have to change in my game? And the next podcast episode was about how I had started getting a bunch of lays in Ukraine just a few weeks later once I really cracked it. And the same happened with Buenos Aires. I couldn't figure out what to do there. I was day gaming, but I wasn't getting dates. Nothing really was working. And then boom, all of a sudden I get I think 9 lays in a month in Buenos Aires, and half of those were from Daygame. So if you are doing pretty okay in one city, then going on Daygame trips will really teach you how to adapt to different scenarios, to different girls, which will take your game to a whole new level. Next, let's talk, do you need to know the local language if you're going on Daygame trips? And this is mostly about Latin America. Let's start with, can you get laid with only English in Latin America? And the answer is very simple. If you're going to the popular places where everyone else is going, to the touristic places, let's say Playa del Carmen and Medellin and Bogota, then the answer is yes, you can get laid with only English in all the touristic places. Probably, yeah, I would say Buenos Aires as well. These places are fairly touristic. There are many foreigners going there. There are also a decent number of day gamers going on day game trips there. So there is infrastructure for foreigners. People have understood that there is money in knowing English, and they're hiring people who speak English to work in bars, and so the most touristic parts, the parts of the city where you are going to be staying, will have enough people who speak English, who you can day game and go on dates with, and then obviously have some adventures with, hopefully. So do you necessarily need to learn Spanish to day game in Latin America? Absolutely no. But this is where it becomes much more interesting, because let's say you are day gaming in Buenos Aires, and you are opening these beautiful Argentine girls. By the way, the hottest Argentines are not in Buenos Aires, but that's a whole different topic. So you are opening them, and you realize that the biggest part of them, the majority of them, do not speak English, but that's fine with you, because there are maybe 30% of girls who have good enough English level for you to chat with them, go on dates with them, and sleep with them, and maybe you speak some super like basic 3-word Spanish, and you can make one joke in Spanish, but you can't do a date in Spanish. So you're fine with it. You don't care that they don't speak any English, because you just let them go. Well, then what happens? There is another day gamer, a guy with a decent game, who goes to the same place, but he speaks Spanish, and he opens these girls, and yes, the English speaking ones, he's speaking with them in English, but these girls, because these cities are so popular for day game trips, these girls have spoken to day gamers before, they have been on day game dates before, they've probably slept with foreign day gamers before. But then the same guys are chatting with girls who don't speak any English, and because of that, they have not had many conversations with foreigners, especially with foreigners who have any game and who are trying to seduce them. And they obviously are doing pretty good with these girls. They don't have all these experiences with foreigners. So, do you need Spanish to day game in Latin America? Absolutely not. Will your day game results be on a completely new level if you speak even fairly basic Spanish? You're able to have a normal conversation and run a day game set and go on a day game date in Spanish? Yes, your results will be next level. What I suggest doing if you are thinking about going on day game trips to Latin America, before learning Spanish, just go to one of these known touristic day game places. Go to Playa del Carmen, which is full with foreigners and with girls from different parts of Latin America who speak Spanish. By the way, Playa del Carmen is full with hot girls from Argentina. That's how we ended up going to Argentina. I just met so many hot Argentines there that I decided, fuck this, I'm gonna go to the source. So go to a place like that. Go to Playa del Carmen, maybe Medellin, maybe Bogota. These places, well, maybe start with Playa del Carmen. It's the safest of them all. Go there and then day game there in English and have your exposure to Latin America and how things are there. Have your first Latin American adventures and then decide whether you like the vibe and whether you want to explore different places in Latin America. Then, if you do, then you can start learning Spanish, whatever, just get some, get some Pimsleur CDs or get a private teacher. I learned Spanish fairly quickly to a level where I could run day game sets and go on dates. It wasn't too complicated. So do your first trip with just English, and if you really like it and you want to spend more time in Latin America, then yes, it's time to invest in learning Spanish. And the last question I want to touch upon, and this is going to be super short, but it's a weird question, but guys ask it. And this is from guys who many of them are nomads or very frequent travelers. So they've learned day gaming in English, or I coached a guy in Spanish in Argentina. And they've day gamed in different languages, but they haven't day gamed in their native language. And now they're going home and they finally have to day game in their own language. And they ask, well, what do I do? It's so uncomfortable for me to day game in my own language. I'm so used to English. Like, should I just day game in English? What the fuck do I do? And I think it's a really silly and weird question. Day game in your own language. And in the beginning, for a few days, it's gonna be weird because you have to translate your, hey, I know this is random, but I thought you look cute and I had to say hi, and your stacks. And maybe you polish some stories and teases in English or in other languages that you day game in. And you don't know them in your own language, so it will take a little bit of time to adapt. But after a few days of day game, you will be completely comfortable day gaming in your own language. So you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to, day game in English or do anything else like that. I think that's super silly. So just day game in your own language, and in a few days' time, you should be totally fine. Well, that's it for this time, guys. If you have any questions about day game trips and day gaming in different places, then you can ask them on our Daygame Church Telegram group chat, which you can join by clicking the link in description. And if you want to go on a day game trip and learn day game together with me, maybe in Budapest, maybe somewhere else in Europe or in Latin America, I'm even going to Asia this autumn, then there's a link where you can learn more about how day game coaching with me usually works in the description. You can click that and read everything there. So that's it for this time. Thank you for listening. See you in the next podcast episode. Ciao, guys.